Isagi and Nagi are born brothers. Now, Nagi is an interesting one because he is one of those characters that is very, very lazy, but at the same time, he's a prodigy, absolutely elite at football, but for the mass majority of their life, they really wouldn't know that, at least until they're quite a bit older. Isagi would always have an interest in football, but the school they go to is a school that actually doesn't have any sports at all. So he would kind of play from club to club, but he would also kind of inherit a little bit of that laziness that his brother has. But Isagi loves football so much so that he kind of just overcomes the laziness. So he kind of works hard, works at it, and just tries his best, more or less, to overcome it and use his absolute insane skills and his insane body type to play football. And in some of these clubs, he would absolutely dominate. And frankly, Nagi would sometimes come to his games and kind of just hang out. And I wanted to say this before we continue on with the story. I'm going to still refer to Isagi and Nagi as individuals, as by those names, just to make it easier for y'all to understand. But just know that they do have the same last name and stuff like that. But this is easier this way. Okay, with that quick little cut in, I wanted to go on with the whole idea that Isagi more or less actually kind of is dominating in clubs. In like the club sports scene and being just an amazing football player, Isagi's extremely good. And he's actually practiced before with his brother Nagi, but he hasn't practiced that much because Nagi isn't really that big of a fan of hard work. He actually is kind of fully against it. He doesn't really want to work out. He doesn't want to train. He doesn't want to try. But it's obvious that Nagi is super special at football, and his own brother tries to convince him to more or less play football with him. And this whole process is kind of difficult, but eventually he would convince his brother to play football with him. And once he starts playing, it's pretty interesting. Nagi's actually super interested in getting better with his brother, and he feels that as long as he's playing with him, he'll enjoy the game of football. But they do kind of have a conversation that Nagi really should work harder, in which he really doesn't even want to try. And I'll be honest, Isagi is a good little bit better than Nagi, and it's really just because Nagi doesn't try very hard. They're both really, really good at football, both prodigies at that, about the same height, same weight, around there. They're kind of mirror images of each other, but just slightly different in personality. Like I said, Isagi's nowhere near as lazy as Nagi is. He might have some traits of laziness, but other than that, he's nowhere near as lazy as Nagi. But eventually, one day, everything would change. And the one thing that would change is the addition of another person to convince Nagi to take football even more serious. And that would be because he wants to add a football team to the very school they're currently in. And that is Ryo. Ryo Mikage would more or less tell Nagi that he's never seen someone as good as him at football, and especially because he's seen him kind of just kick a ball, and also he basically caught a ball with his foot while Ryo was kind of just messing around. And Ryo wants to find purpose in his life, so Nagi would be the way. But he would then tell Ryo that he's not the brother that he should be talking to. He should be talking to his other brother. He would then tell Ryo that Isagi is far more capable than Nagi is himself. Maybe this is kind of a way for Nagi to get him off his back, but at the same time, Nagi knows that his brother is more into this than anyone ever would be. He knows that his brother loves football, and he may not love it as much as, well, everyone else, but obviously his brother enjoys it far more than him, so he should really be speaking to him. In which Ryo would kind of be conflicted by this. He actually likes Nagi and thinks that he's a good person and that he wants to still play football with him, but eventually they would meet. It would be both the Nagi brothers and also Ryo. They would have a conversation, and that conversation would entail getting and bringing a football team to this very school. And that football team would eventually come And Isagi would be super excited about this and would tell Nagi that he needs to take things a little bit more seriously. Nagi would sigh and would tell his brother Isagi that he doesn't really want to, but he will just for him, in which Ryo would be happy to hear this. I mean, it just took two people to more or less antagonize him and bug him all the time to eventually, actually try his best. But it's not even really him trying his best, it's really just him doing slightly above the bare minimum, which he would eventually see his progression in all of this. But it's really the actions of other people that he's kind of against. He's so used to now playing with Isagi and also Ryo, and he doesn't understand the skill gap between everybody. I mean, Isagi himself is extremely talented, arguably better than Nagi, and on top of that, it seems that he just understands the game better than Nagi. Yes, he might not have like certain aspects that Nagi may have, but in an overall spectrum, there's a hard argument that Isagi is far better than Nagi, and even Ryo understands this. But their combination, their trio, is absolutely unstoppable. It seems like when they play high school players, especially in a tournament that they have going on at their school, it would be unstoppable. They would be unstoppable, impossible to stop. And it's as if the duo of the Nagi brothers would be literally impossible to guard, because their absolute athletic physiques and also their ability to jump and control the ball would be so insane that it's as if Ryo just kicks the ball in a certain direction and the goal is just imminent, that the goal is just going to happen no matter what, which is a freak idea. The idea that you have two absolute monsters, people that are 6'1", 6'2", huge human beings that are just down the field, and all you have to do is chip the ball to them and they just score, is something absolutely amazing. And Nagi would realize how talented his brother truly is. Isagi would know as well how talented Nagi is, but Nagi would never understand, or didn't understand for a long time, why his brother wanted to play with him so badly. But now he sees that football is so much more fun with his brother by his side. And yeah, he's not super into it still, but it seems like his brother just loves it so much. And as long as his brother's happy, I mean, he's happy. He's happy to keep a smile on his brother's face. And frankly, at the end of the day, he's okay with it. And even though Isagi kind of treats Nagi like a smaller brother or a little brother, Nagi is slightly older than him, just by a little bit. But he would tell Nagi that he can make his own choices, that he doesn't want to force him into anything, but he would like for them to become the best strikers in Japan and go on to be the best in the national team. And honestly, their skills alone throughout the game and throughout this tournament would show just that. Why they would be 100% capable of becoming a tandem striking duo that is unstoppable. Because you might have someone big enough, strong enough to wall one of them off. But what are you going to do when there's two of them? When there's two of them that have insane capabilities in terms of dribbling, insane capabilities in terms of ball control, complete and perfect ball control at that, and on top of that, can really score at will. And they're honestly freaks of nature in terms of that. And it seems as if Isagi's IQ for the game of football is absolutely insane, and to a certain extent actually rubs off on Nagi as well. And Ryo, in all transparency, is kind of just a background character. I hate to say it, but he does help. He thinks that he's doing an amazing job and helping other people and doing this or that, but kind of doesn't do as much as he would really want. Nowhere near as much as he would really want. Because at the end of the day, he's outshined by a mile because of these two Nagi brothers, these two absolute prodigies. Isagi and Nagi, the prodigal duo, and soon after the tournament is completely wrapped up, they win in complete ease. They would see their next goal on the horizon, and that next goal would be going to this so-called brand new football training camp. They're not 100% sure what this is all about. They don't really know what it's all about at all to a certain extent. But eventually, when they would all arrive, him, Ryo, or Nagi, Isagi, and Reo arrive there, they actually look around. They see everything, how it's working, how it's going, and they're actually pretty shocked. Wow, I mean, this place is pretty huge. It's this beautiful auditorium, and it seems like there's a man that kind of runs it all, which does excite them. I mean, or excites Isagi for the most part. He's kind of excited to see what everyone's capable of and what everyone could do. So he's just up for whatever's to come. And eventually, it would be heard that everybody here is a striker. And Jinpachi Ego would explain exactly what Blue Lock is all about. He would explain that Blue Lock is actually, in simple terms, a place to hone Japan's national team's next greatest striker, in which you would think that this is simple, but this is not necessarily that simple. Of course, just honing a striker seems like a simple idea, and trying to make someone really good seems like a pretty simple idea, but at the same time, when in terms of trying to hone that person and get that person better and make them absolutely elite, it is nowhere near as simple as anybody could possibly believe. And frankly, at the end of the day, Ego is here to polish all of these people, to make it so that all these unpolished gems become bright and shining diamonds. Yeah, he wants to make it so all of them do their absolute best, and frankly, he wants to see all of them, well, become or attempt to become the greatest strikers in the world. In which this is exciting because Ego just wants to see exactly what they're all capable of and what they're all made of. And he would tell them all that as this gate opens, as it all changes through, they have the choice to walk through those doors, to walk through and take a chance on their own careers, on their own life. Because if they lose, they will no longer have the chance to become, well, strikers for the national team, will not be at all be able to be a striker on the national team. And they'll have to go somewhere else, do something else. And frankly, if they lose here, they weren't worth it in the first place. In which, hearing this, well, Isagi gets kind of excited. He thinks that the idea that everything could collapse, fall apart, and more or less change so drastically makes him so excited. I mean, seriously, this is amazing. I mean, who wouldn't be excited about something like this? In which, this is the truth behind what Isagi is saying. I mean, he wants to show out. He wants to show everybody exactly what he's made of. He looks toward Nagi, and let's be honest, Nagi doesn't seem too entertained by this idea. I mean, he doesn't care about proving anybody wrong. He doesn't care about more or less showing anybody what he's capable of. But he looks at his brother briefly and can see in his eyes how excited his brother is. And Nagi would walk over to him and pat him on the shoulder, saying that this is their chance to become the best strikers in the world. He hopes that they can really do that. And Reo would jump in and say that they're all going in together, that they can take this down and be the best strikers ever. He's going to make both of them into the best they've ever seen. In which Isagi would smirk and say that Reo has some work to do himself, but they all have potential. So let's go smash whatever needs to come now. Isagi would be excited and would walk through those doors. And as they walk through those doors, there is so much tension in the air. It's as if everyone knows that they are taking a literal leap of faith. It's as if they're jumping off a building, getting ready for an absolute skydive. But now, Isagi, Nagi, and Reo, they get ready, get dressed, and they put on their outfits, and on the side it has a number, and on one side, all three of them says Team V. And they all walk into the Team V room, and they see many, many people. But a lot of them, they're kind of not that important. A lot of them are kind of just filler. They're kind of just sitting there. Reo, Nagi, and Isagi, or if we want to get specific, Reo Mikage, Seijiro Nagi, and Yoichi Nagi are all in the same room. And this time around, they don't have someone that would have been a familiar face in their previous reality and in the previous universe and the canon universe, Zentetsu would actually be moved over to Team Z for simplistic sakes, and immediately a ball would drop from the sky as they're all speaking to everybody there. As the ball drops, it immediately comes up on the screen, Jinpachi Ego. Ego begins to explain everything that's going to happen. And more specifically, this is a game of tag. And it might sound boring, it might sound simplistic, but this game of tag involves kicking people with the ball, in which Isagi thinks this is kind of funny, and he thinks this is great, and he looks around and asks who wants to get out, in which Nagi looks at his brother and thinks that the egoist side of him is definitely shining. It's as if competition is now making him brim and boil over to the point that his excitement is unable to be wavered, because at the end of the day, there was no filter for Isagi's ego. There was no drawback. There was no hidden ego, repressed ego. No. He's that dude, and he knows he's that dude. In terms of an egoist, and if he had any restriction, it would be Ryo and Nagi, who restricts him just a little bit, kind of keeping his head on straight. But at the same time, Isagi in the 2 minutes and 16 seconds would hit somebody so hard with the ball, and eventually they would just dodge, weave, and one of the no-name characters, one of these characters that don't really matter, would get knocked out. And Nagi would honestly find some fun in this himself when they're trying to attack him as well, but it wouldn't really matter. The team of Team V would lose one player, and now they would be made up of only 11 players. And the main three that we really only need to care about is Nagi, Isagi, and Ryo. And Isagi is just excited about this. I mean, he assumes that what's coming next is probably matches, maybe some sort of games, and all he can think about is how cool this freaking is. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, think about it, right? There's some insane things that go on throughout this time. I mean, they're going to be 11 strikers versus 11 strikers. That could make for some very entertaining games, in which Ryo is pretty excited about this as well, and he likes the change of pace because Isagi himself is very excited about getting better, and frankly, he has little aspects of laziness, but when it comes to football, this dude is straight as an arrow. Like, he doesn't care. Like, all he cares about is football. Everything else, he's kind of lazy. He's always throughout the time of being in school has gotten bad grades and stuff like that. It's just enough to get by, but like, all he cares about is football. That's all he wants to do. Nagi kind of just lazy in general, but since he loves his brother so much, he tries to get himself to overcome the laziness because of how much his brother loves football. So he does try his best in that regard. But eventually, Ego would tell them all that there's a couple things they need to speak about. For one, well, congratulations on making it to the next parts. Number two, there's 11 people and they make up Team V. And now that they're Team V, they will face off with another team, in which they need to realize that they're going to work together, get better together, get stronger together, and so on. But there's one thing they do need to realize at the end of the day, but there's a chance that people may betray each other. People may kind of crush each other, lose to each other, and put themselves in a bad position. But still, there is a way around it. There's a way to overcome the odds. Now it's just a matter of seeing if they truly can overcome those odds. He tells them all and wishes them all good luck, and he says that he can't wait to see his unpolished gems flourish on the football field, and he tells them all that he'll be seeing them very, very soon. The screen would turn off, and Team Y would be their first match. Team V versus Team Y. And Isagi, Ryo, and Nagi would be ready to smash them to dust. Because frankly, this is all Isagi can think about right now. And eventually, their chance to take them on would come. And with Team Y, and more or less the game against Team Y, this game would be a pretty simple one. And they would really only have to worry about Okawa and Nico, but their coordination wouldn't be that good. I mean, overall, they just wouldn't be that good in general. And frankly, there is still a reckless amount of play within everybody. But since Ryo, Nagi, and also Isagi have played with each other for so long, they kind of take the lead. And it seems like they're like an actual functioning team. They throw someone at goalie, have some defenders, midfield, whatever. They do all that. And frankly, it seems like the team of Team Y just gets absolutely obliterated. Nico would show some promise here and there with his eyes, and Isagi would even point this out. As he steals the ball from him, he would kind of score and then tell Nico that sometimes he needs to not just watch everything happen in full motion and not rely on his eyesight. He needs to rely on his instincts combined with his eyesight, and then maybe he'll finally reach the pinnacle. He has a lot of promise. Even Isagi would tell him that over and over throughout the game, but as they rack up the points, long passes to Nagi and Isagi, beautiful passes as well, let's just say there's one person watching them very intently, and that's Ego. Ego is straight up watching them in complete awe. He knew that the Nagi brothers were special, but he didn't know that they were this special. Like, this is absolutely mind-blowing for him. He knew, and normally he's very calculated, but it seems like the lazy one in Nagi, the one he thought would be kind of a challenge to see him jump over a hurdle of his laziness, kind of seems ahead of the curve than what he thought he would be. And Isagi, the brother of Nagi, I mean, he straight up doesn't have that laziness on the field. So he's absolutely insane and dynamic on it. Ryo is kind of just a side character to the main duo protagonist, but even he has some potential. And the game of Team V versus Team Y would end in absolute destruction. And frankly, the game would end on a score line of 10-0. Yeah. The fact is, their coordination is so much better than Team Y's, and on top of that, Team Y kind of lacks a lot of firepower and coordination themselves, and Nico was kind of not playing for his own goal, but soon he would realize that he really should try his best to play for his own goal, but that might even leave them open for weaknesses down the future or down the path as well, because I mean, when you kind of diverge from the plan, I mean, it kind of does run a little rampant in terms of their capabilities. Okawa wouldn't be used as much, and so on and so forth. But with that game being over, them winning 10-0 or 10-0, it seems like they're 1-0 now in the games, and they're looking forward to the very next game. But Isagi continues to train throughout this time. Work out, work hard, because he wants to show Nagi that them as a duo and even them as a trio with Ryo can be something special. But he knows that he might be a prodigy. So is Nagi. But if they work hard, they can be even better than what they were on the field today. Nagi is kind of curious about this because they did just dominate. So why do they really need to work this hard? I mean, it's kind of weird. In which Nagi even says he would rather just lay down. In which Isagi says that if he works out with him just for a little bit, that he can go rest and that he'll actually bring his food to him while in the room. How about that? In which Nagi takes that deal, saying that sounds good to him, and in which Isagi even says that if he works out every time with him, but then he'll still do the whole, he'll take the food to him and stuff like that, but he'll even use some of the points that he scores on Nagi himself. Nagi gives him a thumbs up and says that how long do they work out, in which Isagi would tell him and they would begin working out. Ryo would join them because he would have no hesitance in working out with them and getting better, and Isagi would kind of be an example for his older brother so that he can follow along and get even better himself. The trio of Ryo, Nagi, and Isagi seemed to be jumping over hurdle after hurdle and seem to be getting in a position for themselves to be absolute monsters on the field. But how will it go in the future games with Team W, Team X, and Team Z? Well, you'll have to find out in the next parts of What If Isagi and Nagi Were Brothers. The next match that Team V would have is against Team W, or the team with the Wanama twins. The Wanama twins are a dynamic duo. very quick, very fast, and frankly, they have great coordination. But when it comes to coordination, Ryo and the Nagi brothers have insane amounts of coordination. And Isagi, or Nagi's brother, the younger brother, of course, would obviously be the forefront of all of their coordination. It would all start with him in terms of the defensive side of the ball and stopping the Wanama twins. Isagi sees things that others just do not. So when he begins to see certain patterns, rhythms, and certain things that are going to happen, let's just say he's able to take the situation over relatively quickly. He's able to attack and steal the ball from the Wanama twins, and he would even pass it up to Reyes to easily set up a goal for his own brother, Nagi. Nagi would easily score, and for every goal Nagi scores, well, I mean, he's told by his brother Isagi, that he's gonna have a little bit of time off or downtime, and that on top of that, he'll actually get every goal that Isagi scores, he'll get the points from that as long as he's trying as hard as possible. So this does influence Nagi's want for himself to score, but also his brother to score. So it's pretty easy for them to continue on with this and this pattern of dominance, because as they continue to dominate the field, it's obvious that Nagi is actually having a good time, even with on top of the persuasion that Isagi has already given him. And Ryo continues to kind of show how dynamic of a passer he is during this time. He just passes the ball easily to Isagi and Nagi down the field, and their insane ball control just shows how crazy it is to have these two on the field together, because it's just a matter of kicking the ball down there. Kind of like if y'all know anything about American football, kind of the whole idea of when you have a really good wide receiver, you can kind of close your eyes and just chuck that thing down there, and it's kind of OBJ's down there somewhere, so F it. And that's what Ryo kind of plays like in a way. He is a pretty good football player, don't get me wrong, but even though he is pretty decent at football, he hasn't really had any instance of trying very hard. He hasn't even given himself much effort and hasn't really tried that hard to even more or less win or lose or so on and so forth. I mean, he hasn't tried that hard to get better either. I mean, he's gotten better to a certain extent, but when you have dynamic players like Isagi and Nagi on your team, it kind of just doesn't matter to an extent. Still though, the game would go on and Isagi would score some amazing goals. During this time, he continues to evolve. His ego begins to sprout even further. All he wants to do is show why he is so good. And Ryo's goal is to watch them both become the greatest strikers alive, and he wants to make them the greatest strikers. But Isagi, his idea is that for him and Nagi to become the greatest duo to ever live. He wants both of them, him and his brother, to be unstoppable. He wants to walk through this whole blue lock thing without even flinching, without even giving an inch. So every time they get within the box or get within the penalty area, the ball control and passing that Isagi has and the vision that he has for Nagi to score goals or even for himself to score goals is abundant. He would easily be able to set Nagi up or even himself up, or even a quick pass to Nagi that would set Isagi up for a goal, and they would do this with absolute ease. It would be so simple. Now, that's just flat out the reality of it. Isagi would continue to score within the box. Eventually, the score would get ran up to a point of an 8 to 9 to even maybe 10 to 0 score line. The Team V continues to get better and better and better, but more specifically, Isagi and Nagi continue to get better and better and better. And there is really no slowing them down. There is really no stopping them entirely. They absolutely are going off. Isagi and Nagi are showing things to Ego that he didn't really think would be shown this early on. But it seems like their motivations to continue to push each other further and further are something of an amazing dynamic duo. Because at the end of the day, I mean, this is absolutely freakish. I mean, the fact is, they're feeding off of each other's excitement, feeding off of each other's want to get better, and this only makes for greater strikers, only makes for greater football players. And as long as this continues on and on and on, well, he'll have a guaranteed duo of strikers that are absolutely dynamic in front of the goal. And it's one of the most amazing things he's seen in a while. But he'll want to see more and more as time goes on, and he'll see a little bit more when they take on Team X. But Team X is not very coordinated. It's really just the one and only Bato. Bato is an absolute specimen, freak of nature, and this guy, he knows that he's the main character of the field, and especially to start out the game, he would score relatively quickly, and it would be difficult to stop him. Just the physicality alone makes it really difficult to read him and stop him from scoring goals. But Isagi would soon realize exactly what he likes to do. After his first goal, Isagi would see that he kind of darts over to one place, or at least one area. It seems like there's a range that he has for a guaranteed goal of his. And with that said, he needs to make sure he keeps him out of that range. As long as he keeps him out of that range, none of this even matters in the long run. As long as he's out of that range, he won't be able to score. He won't be able to do anything else. And this wouldn't be as easy as it's said, but a quick Rayo pass to Nagi down the field and eventually a tap pass back to Isagi for a goal would make the game 1-1. And after the second goal would be scored by Bato, well, Isagi would know exactly how to stop him. He would use his physique alone to kind of box him out, but eventually he would run a bunch of traps and honestly just a ton of trap plays with these other players that are kind of, well, useless. And using them, he's able to kind of stop Bato to a certain extent. And this would be the case because it would end up leaving multiple passes wide open for Rayo and Nagi down the field, and for them to score off of every single steal that they take from Bato. The team of Bato, or Team X, begins to crumble, and quickly they would realize that their coordination or lack of coordination is definitely a downfall, a massive downfall. And they've known this for a while, but they're being exposed even further because of it. Even with the goals that were scored early by Bato, it still seems as if Team X just continues to fall behind. I mean, there's just no chance in catching up, and no chance at the end of the day making it to the fullest extent that they want to make it. And frankly, there's just no stopping Team V at all. Absolute destruction. Like, Team V just dominates without even a thought after figuring out how to stop Bato. And after Isagi more or less figures out a way to stop him entirely. So after it is all said and done, they would win by a large margin, and they would be ready to take on their next team. But with that said, they did hear rumors about what was happening. Isagi wasn't sure exactly what these rumors were and what was even happening, but he heard that the other team, or someone on the other team of their next team that they had to play, actually gave up. It seems like they made some sort of deal, and this would eventually be confirmed when they would all be sitting down, and one of them would walk up, and this guy named Wataru would ask them and tell them that as long as they give him 3 free goals, that he'll make sure that they win automatically, and that he'll sabotage his team. In which Isagi would hear this, and he would get kind of mad about it. He would tell him that he's just useless, that if he was better at football, he would obviously be able to win and not have to do these little underhanded tricks. It's actually revolting that he's even saying these things right now to him. Isagi would get mad about this, and he would say that if he's going to just not play at all, that he should just kind of give up on Blue Lock entirely. Like, why even try? There's really no point of even being here if this is the path that you want to take. And Wataru would be completely shocked by this, but of course Rayo and Nagi would get him to go away because Isagi was getting more and more mad. And Isagi would tell them that he's just frustrated. He bet that guy better try, and if he doesn't, there's going to be a real issue. And Isagi would just wait. And eventually, when the game time would begin and it would be time to take on Team V or Team Z, or Team V versus Team Z, he would see that they're actually only playing with 10 players. Isagi would kind of be frustrated by this and see the other guy on the side, and he would tell Nagi and Ryo that since they're already up 3-0, he's going to go sit down on the bench and sit down on the side. So Isagi comes over and actually sits down, and Nagi walks over to him saying that if he's going to be lazy, can he be lazy too? In which Isagi would laugh about it for a little bit and say that they might as well, because at the end of the day, they're already going through to the next round, and he's not going to allow these other people to just sabotage for no reason. So the Nagi brothers would kind of just chill on the bench, and Nagi would just lay on the ground as they kind of just take a nap while the next game would begin, and Team V would be actually up a player, ironically enough. Wataru would be confused by this, like, what is wrong with these people? Why are they doing this? But it's obvious why. I mean, Isagi's annoyed, and supposedly this is actually the only way that Team Z could actually get through to the next round. So he said F it, that he's going to just lay down and he's going to chill here and not do anything because he's annoyed. So Ryo even decides to join him, and eventually it would lead to kind of having very few people on the field of Team Z, and it would be more or less as if they were forfeiting the match, and eventually they would lose by a good and a very large margin. I mean, obviously you have basically no players on the field, but after the game would be all said and done, I mean, Team Z would kind of be happy that they won. I mean, it would be a little empty feeling. I mean, it's hard to like celebrate when you win like that, but at the same time, they would kind of be happy because Wataru doesn't just get to go through on his own for some stupid reason. So Team Z would win the match and would go through to the next round as well, and Isagi would kind of celebrate with them. He would be happy that they're all going through and that they're all going to be able to go on to the next part of the blue lock kind of selections, and the second selection would be upon them. But before all of that is said and done, Jinpachi Ego speaks to every single last one of them. They speak about what's going to occur, why this whole selection was the way it was, and also what's going to happen directly after. He explains that this was all about learning what a striker truly is, but in all reality, some of these people, they didn't really learn that much. But even with that said, I mean, the whole selection is ready to go. So they do a bunch of workouts, trainings, and just getting all of their bodies completely in shape and ready. And the next part of the first part of the next selection is a holographic goalkeeper. Yeah, Blue Lock Man. Blue Lock Man is built around this idea of a perfect goalkeeper and a way for them to train extremely hard. 100 goals in 90 minutes is a pretty tall task, and it's a tall task for anybody. But luckily, Isagi has a ton of experience with scoring and working extremely hard. I mean, he's been doing it forever now in football, and he's obsessed with the game. So he's able to blow through and destroy this whole sequence relatively easily and get on to the next part of the second selection. And the next part of the second selection is actually explained to be a 3 versus 3, and the idea is whoever wins will steal a player and go up to the 4 versus 4, and once you get 5 players, you pass the selection. Now, Isagi would then wait for, well, Nagi and Ryo to eventually arrive, and once they would arrive, they would team up and prepare for whoever they're going to take on in the next selection. But when they walk through the doors, they see 3 people standing there. 3 people that they haven't seen at all. And it seems like, well, that these people are some of the best in Blue Lock. So Isagi tells Ryo and Nagi that he wants to take on them. That he wants to show everybody what they're capable of. And if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And frankly, this is their next step into evolution. So Isagi insists on challenging Rin Itoshi's team, the little brother of the prodigy of Japan, Sai Itoshi. But how will this game go? Well, you'll have to find out in part 3, or the finale of What If Isagi and Nagi Were Brothers. The match between Isagi, Nagi, Ryo versus Rin, Aru, and Tokumitsu is about to begin. And their match will be an epic one, because the coordination between the three of them, the Nagi brothers and Ryo, is so high level, to the extent that it's extremely difficult to stop. And the first goal goes on without a hitch. At the end of the day, they might have, or Rin might have, insane vision and insane amounts of IQ for the game of football, but it's not that simple. It's nowhere near that simple, because when the coordination and also the talent overwhelms, it seems like Rin is forced to evolve. The first goal would be easy for the Nagi brothers, easily dashing and passing back and forth, scoring their first goal. Keep in mind, Nagi is far better than what he would have been ever in canon, and on top of that, Isagi is extremely talented on top of his vision, and the coordination they have as a trio is just outstanding. But Rin, with no remorse, wants to swing things back in his favor, and on kickoff, he would score a goal himself. The shorter field obviously benefiting them in the long run. And as the game continues on, it feels like a slugfest, like it's a complete and utter back and forth, but the main issue in the long run would seem to be Ryo's defense. It doesn't look like the Nagi brothers can even get a stop. Now, even with that said, if they're going blow for blow, they're going to end up winning 5-4. But what happens when Rin sees things fall into his own place? Aru would make a dynamic play on the ball, trying to steal it, and Rin would put himself in a beautiful position to get the ball himself. Now, this was all luck. It was as if Rin knew where to be to actually lean luck in his favor. And that's exactly what he did. Leaning luck in his favor, stealing the ball, and scoring once again, putting his team up eventually 4-3. Now, this is a bad situation to be in. Isagi's team has been going head to head with Rin's score for score, but now it's not that simple. Now it's far different. It seems like the Nagi brothers are now in a position where they need to score and then get a stop. Now, that stop is going to be difficult unless someone can evolve even further. But it seems as if the weakness of Ryo is too heavy on what they're doing, and it seems as if Rin is now adapting to the field, so he may even get another stop himself. Guarding Isagi, Rin starts adapting and interpreting ways of stopping Isagi in the long run, in terms of just trying to more or less outmaneuver and just outskill Rin. It's not working anymore. It seems like Rin is keeping up. It seems like Rin is able to stop him. A quick pass to Nagi and then a pass to Ryo would eventually lead them near the goal, but the issue is Ryo cannot really score on his own, especially with Tokumitsu guarding him. But eventually, Ryo would realize something, that these two, if they lose, they're just going to leave him. And that even if one of the others gets picked, if Nagi or his brother get picked, well, who says they're going to win the final match? And with the Nagi brothers, one of them would easily get picked over him, and he would have to watch as they leave him forever. Ryo would have this realization, knowing that they need to guarantee this goal, they need to score, and that's where he sees it. He realizes that he knows that he's only good to a certain extent. He's only, all his attributes only being that of 99, and that's his max. So he decides to take over, truly copying and being the chameleon, and he truly copies the goal that he saw Rin score. Scoring one for himself, putting them up 4-4, or putting them tied 4-4. Now it's all about the defense. And the Nagi brothers are even actually more enthralled by this, seeing the adaptive nature of Ryo now, seeing what he was capable of. This makes things interesting. So the Nagi brothers try their absolute hardest, try their absolute best. How are they going to get the stop? They begin to guard, or Isagi begins to guard up on Rin, guarding him with all of his power, all of his nature, trying to use his sense of strength and kind of big size to like bully Rin. But Rin's not weak himself. That guy, he is strong. So he's able to muscle through as well. But once the ball is passed to Tokumitsu, Ryo has to somehow guard him. And that guarding, that nature, that powerhouse of a person, it's not that simple. Ryo, well, he just can't keep up. There's no way. He gets bullied by, and Tokumitsu with his uncertain self races toward the goal, and eventually he would arrive, scoring, putting them up 5-4 and winning the game for his team. He would get honestly happy for himself. I mean, obviously, right? He is someone that is unsure of himself all the time, but now he's just won, and he's excited. And Ryo, Nagi, and the Nagi brothers stand there in disbelief. Isagi stands there and looks toward his brother, and then looks back toward the team that just defeated him. And immediately, Rin would tell the other two to shut up, and that he gets to choose who comes with them. And as he points directly toward Isagi, telling him that he hopes that he's as good alone as he is with his brother, because, well, he'll be joining them. And Isagi, he knows that he could be that much better. But as he walks away, he looks toward his brother, and he tells him to come meet him at the top. Don't let his dreams slip away on purpose. Don't let his laziness allow him to do that. Isagi tells his brother that he'll never forgive him if he doesn't meet him at the top, because they are supposed to be the striking duo. They are supposed to be the best duo alive. He walks away, and Rin hears this and even is frustrated himself, reminding him of his own brother. But still, Isagi would walk away with Rin's team, and they would kind of just over the next day or so prepare and train for whatever and whoever is to come next. They're ready for whatever's to come. And frankly, the addition of Isagi, well, it's kind of unbeknownst to everyone, but this addition will make them unstoppable. Isagi's vision for the field is extremely good. Maybe not as good as Rin's, but it's extremely good nonetheless. His ball control, his ability to score, and all the above are so good that it makes for a talented threat that Rin could use. His absolute skill threshold may be greater than everybody else in Blue Lock. Someone that is absolutely amazing at almost everything. Ball control, dribbling, shooting within the box, outside the box, so on and so forth. He's absolutely insane. So, when the next match would finally begin, and they would finally take on, well, his younger brother once again, the Nagi brothers would face off on the field against each other for the first time in a very, very long time. The team of Nagi, Ryo, Baro, and Chiguri stand in front of them. Stand in front of, well, Isagi, and obviously Rin, and many others. And now he questions his brother. Isagi questions Nagi, asking if he even got any better throughout this time, because he'll tell him that he's been training with Rin and everybody else here, and let's just say the best really do sharpen the best. Iron truly does sharpen iron. Nagi tells him that he wasn't lazy, that he wanted to make his brother, well, make his brother acknowledge him. Make it so that his brother knew how good, how talented, and how close they truly were in skill. Nagi wants to show him that he's better. But even if Nagi has this want to do so, show that he's better than his brother, even if one goal would prove it, Nagi quickly putting his team up 1-0 on a score, on a goal, on his brother, it wouldn't really matter. The team coordination with Bato on the team would allow them to crumble, or would force them to crumble and put them in a bad position. Nagi would try to just play with Ryo and also Chigiri, but basically playing 3v4 against a team as freakishly good as Rin and Isagi's team is just a no-go. Frankly, Isagi shows what he's capable of, and Nagi may have gotten one goal off of him, but Isagi with the combination, the chemical reaction of him and Rin, it would turn into an absolute freak show. Rin would set Isagi up for goals, and Isagi would set Rin up for goals that were absolute insanity. Isagi would score, Rin would score, Isagi would score, Rin would score, and their defense seemed impenetrable, especially with the lack of Bado wanting to coordinate. And this would be the end of the line for Nagi's team, or at least for now, putting them back down into the 3-man brackets. But who are they going to choose? I mean, Rin would look over to Isagi and kind of wave his hand nonchalantly as he walks away, because obviously he wants to pick up his brother Nagi. And that makes for the coordination of this team, the team of Rin, Aru, Tokumitsu, and the Nagi brothers, absolutely insane. We're talking about normally how teams don't have that much coordination, but this team would have insane amounts. Rin's vision allows him to kind of keep up and micromanage, and also like just flat out coordinate properly with his entire team. The size of Aru and his ability to come catch the ball or go get the ball midair calls for insane coordination too, especially because it's kind of I'm just gonna pop this ball up and he'll go get it. And on top of that, the Nagi brothers, well, let's just say they've been playing together for their entire life, so they're absolutely insane in terms of their coordination. Now, with all that said, they're going to get a massive reality check though. That reality check is obviously going to be from the World 5. The World 5 is a group of absolute insane players. The World 5 is made up of the best players all around the world. So when they take them on, well, let's just say the overconfidence of Rin, basically saying that they're going to more or less beat the World 5 and that he's going to turn this little Japanese or Japan sightseeing trip into an absolute massacre, an absolute nightmare for them. Quickly, Rin would find a goal, and the coordination between the Nagi brothers and Rin would obviously show the levels that they have currently, but they're not levels above the World 5. Rin would score one, but quickly it would be immediately retaliated back for another goal by the World 5, and of course Isagi and Nagi might end up even getting a goal for themselves. Great coordination would push them down the field. With a combination of Rin, they would then follow up and find a goal. But after that, there was no more goals. There was no more keeping up. There was no going blow for blow with the World 5, and there was no defending. Well, a lot of them are too fast, too strong, too dynamic, and obviously too good on the field. And that's the end of the game. They would end up losing 5-2, and Rin would realize how far behind he truly is. How far behind he truly is from the best in the world. But Isagi knows his limitations. He's not an idiot. He knows what people are capable of and what they can do. I mean, come on. It's the World 5. Of course, he wanted to show off and obviously get to a point where he can keep up with the World 5. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation was that they were going to lose, and that this was a statement from Jinpachi Ego that there's always someone better, and there's always someone to strive to be better than. Now, with all of that said and done, the second selection would soon come to a close, and Isagi's team, or Rin's team of course, would be waiting for all the rest of the teams to arrive. And the arrival of the rest of the teams would then ensue in a speech from Jinpachi Ego. He speaks about how all of them, the unpolished gems, and how they are truly going to be the next great players, and that the U20 match is going to show just that. And he tells them and tells Nagi, and even points out the Nagi brothers that their egos, their ability to work together is now going to come down to this. They've seen it multiple times over and seen it forever, but he hopes that some of the best duos, some of the best players here can lead them to victory in the U20 match, in the U20 World Cup. Now, with that said, who will lead them is the question. Isagi and Nagi would look at each other and they would think exactly at the same time that this is their chance to prove exactly what they've been wanting and saying this entire time, that they are the best, and not only that they are the best, but that they are going to lead themselves. They're going to be the best duos to lead this Blue Lock into the new ascension, into a new age of football. But that story may be for another day and another time.